All right, today is day 40, process, not tools. I woke up this morning feeling distracted, feeling unfocused, having a lack of clarity. Happens to us all. We all feel the same way. I mean, this happens to everybody. So we need help to stay focused. In our modern society, there are so much on our plate because we're doing far more than what the average human was doing a couple hundred years ago. Now, we're not working harder. People worked just as hard or even harder back then, but they were singularly focused. They were primarily worried about gathering, and growing food. That was their primary concern. And so we're no longer in that situation. I have other people doing that, right? We can go to the grocery store, get our food, bring it home, and we can do all of that in probably about an hour. Well, maybe not my case because Trader Joe's is always packed. So it's probably an hour and a half for me. But anyway, I go out to the store, come back, get it in this refrigerator. Oh, and by the way, it is also refrigerated. So I don't have to worry salting or canning or any of that other stuff that we used to have to do 100 years ago or so. So things are easier, but because of that, we're doing a lot more. And the more automated and specialized our society becomes, the more that we as taskmasters or task workers are going to find ourselves in the situation of always feeling overwhelmed by multiple inputs, multiple work streams, and having a difficult time staying focused on what we need to focus on during the day. So throughout my life, I've constantly been worried about this problem. Like, how do I stay focused? How do I stay oriented towards the right tasks at the right time? And so I've gone throughout my life, I've gone through various stages of exploring focus systems. And my bookshelf is littered with books on this topic. I also have bought every gadget you could possibly buy. I remember when I was like 16 or 17, I bought this Timex watch. And you could hold it up to your monitor and it would sync your schedule with your watch from a scheduling system on your computer. But it did it through the monitor. The monitor would flash lights at the watch, and the watch would pick up the binary communication that way, and it would load it into the watch. That was my way of syncing my task system with my watch so that I could be reminded of what to do throughout the day. So anyway, that was my first gadget, but I've had millions of other gadgets, and they're littered throughout my entire house. I've probably had every way of doing this possibly imaginable. But I've come to a conclusion as I've progressed through all these different books, gadgets, software, audiobooks, courses. As I progress through that, my big realization is that the specific system you adopt actually doesn't matter that much at all. What matters is that you consistently stick to one of them. That's what matters. When you pick and make a commitment towards a specific system, you will find out the system is not perfect. But it doesn't matter, because no matter what system you pick, you are not going to reach the full maximum potential of that in any one given system. So at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what system you pick, because even if you pick a system that's second best, the second best system is still going to be good enough for anything you're going to do. So you're never going to achieve fullness in any system, so it doesn't matter what system you pick. And also, whatever system you pick is going to be imperfect. It's not going to fit your needs. So as a consequence, what I've learned is that if I just stick to the system for a consistent period of time, that system slowly starts to adopt. I start adopting a process around the system where I overcome or I adopt the various tools to fit the process I need to follow in my life. And that works out over time. The speed bumps and the difficult parts end up becoming smooth as I work through the process. So following the process is far more important than the tool that you pick. You know, this gives us a lot of, there's a lot of context around this, around focus and productivity. The process is far more important. Now, go back 100 years ago and you will discover that maybe the tool could have had a very dramatic impact. So in some cases, tools have had a big impact. I remember one of my fondest memories of my great grandmother. Her name was Delcy. I sat and talked with her, and one of the questions I had for her as a young man was, and I think I was, probably under the age of 14. I asked her this question: what was the greatest invention you saw in your life? I mean, this was a woman that was born before the turn of the century. So she was born in the 1800s. So she had seen almost every major technical innovation in our society throughout her 100 years, or about, she lived to be about 95. So about her 95 years of life, she had seen every major technical advancement. So I was really curious as to what was the most amazing thing that she saw. Was it the car? Because she saw that come. Was it the telephone? Was it refrigeration? Was it the light bulb? I mean, what was the most exciting thing for you? And you know, her answer was the automatic hay baling machine. That was her answer. The hay baler was the most impressive tool or new innovation that she'd ever seen. Now, coming from her perspective, who was born and raised on a hay farm, growing Timothy hay, yeah, I could see why a hay, because it was a massive effort to cut, lay down, dry out, and then put all of that hay into some sort of bale that could then be sold. So that was a big deal back then. For when the hay baler came around, that actually drove up and down the aisles and automatically cut, then gathered, then put the hay together and bound it with twine and spit it out in a portable form, that must have been incredible because of the number of human hours that it replaced with that innovation. Now, in that case, the tool is really important. But even then, that tool ended up creating an entirely new process for gathering hay. They can now do more than they did before. They can now cut the hay a lot later in the cycle rather than having to have so much dry time. They always had a problem where if you cut the hay, it could rain. So they had to really time this thing out right. Well, now they could cut the hay, lay the hay down, and bale it all with a really fast process. That changed their entire process. So boil this down to practical advice. I suggest it doesn't matter what system you pick, but you need a system for keeping on track of your goals, objectives, and tasks. You need a system for that. There are really good systems out there. There are paper-based systems, there are software-based systems. There's a whole slew of systems out there. There's great authors that have written wonderful books on how to stay focused. And I think any one of them is good. They're all good. So it doesn't matter. Do a little bit of research, pick one that you like, that kind of sings to you, pick that, and then just stick to it. The small inconsistencies or problems you have, you will adapt and refine them over time, and pretty soon that system will become yours, and you'll no longer have the difficulties that you had when you first started out the system. So the journey towards better focus is a personal thing you got to deal with, but you have to have it. So I recommend embracing whatever system that suits you, but more importantly, stick to it and stop worrying so much about the tool selection. Anyway, if you like this topic, I wrote more on it in my blog, and one of these days I'll dive into what my systems are. I've got several, but for now, that's my advice. Thank you.